All right, everyone, Bryce Gelman here on what is just a massive day for New York sports with the NFL draft tonight for the Giants and the Jets, and for Game 3 into the Eastern Conference playoffs between the Knicks and the 76ers. With the Knicks up 2-0, that is where we are going to start. We'll get to the Giants and with less with the Jets, but we're going to focus on the Giants later. We're going to start here with the Knicks in what has been an extremely chippy, physical series. The Knicks somehow find themselves up 2-0. I put out a video on Twitter the other night, or X, or whatever you want to call it, reacting to what happened in Game 2, and it remains true that that's the craziest thing I've ever witnessed in my entire life. Like, I really don't understand how that occurred, and I don't think I've still really processed the fact that it did. But what I know is the fact that the Knicks are now up 2-0 after Jalen Brunson played two of the worst games of his entire career when it comes to expectations and the pressure that he's faced now. I'm sure he had bad games early on in his career with the Mavericks, but nothing like this in the playoffs when he's relied upon so much. And especially considering what he did down the stretch of the season in propelling this Knicks team into the second seed in the Eastern Conference. So now you look at what the series is right now at face value, and it is the Knicks series to win or lose. It's unfortunate that the Sixers are in the position that they're in. The fact that Joel Embiid is nowhere near 100%, might not even be at 60%. I think he's more around 55%. Just watching him play, it's clear that there's something wrong. Clearly there's an issue with the knee, and now supposedly there's an issue with his eye. There is no reason why the Knicks should lose this series at this point, but apparently Joel Embiid and the Sixers, they think they're the better team. Joel Embiid says that Sixers should be up 2-0, that they're the better team. My question for Joel Embiid is, why are you even playing? If I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, there's no way I put Joel Embiid out there for Game 3. Even if the Knicks advance, or even if the Sixers advance, they beat the Knicks in 6 or 7 games, you think that there's any chance the Sixers team competes for a championship this year with the lack of depth pieces that they have? With Nicholas Batum, and he's played solidly, and he's the reason why they were the 7th seed, and it wasn't the Heat because of what he did in the playing game. But you got Nicholas Batum playing big minutes on this team. You have Kyle Lowry playing big minutes on this team, all buyout guys. There is a reason why the Sixers bench has not been able to even match the intensity of what the Knicks bring. Bogdanovich, McBride, Mitchell Robinson, 3 guys who would start on the majority of teams in the NBA. Say what you want about Deuce McBride, but Deuce McBride is a stud. Every team in the league could use a Deuce McBride, and it's just such an awesome feeling that the Knicks have him, and the fact that he is now locked up for 3 years and $13 million. 3 years, $13 million. You got to feel bad for the guy, honestly, at this point. But he has earned his minutes. He signed that deal before he really got a lot of playing time. Leon Rose and company made the right decision with offering him that deal, and him and his agent saw the security. They saw the fact that who knows what's going to happen, and he took the deal. And now the Knicks have one of the best contracts in the league. And he's kind of showing you right now how much more impactful he is than really anyone the Sixers have besides Maxey and Embiid. You look at what Tobias Harris has done, what Kelly Oubre has done, what Buddy Hield has done over this series, and it's been slim to none. They have not impacted the game whatsoever. Kelly Oubre, with his size and his length over Jalen Brunson, he's played some solid defense. I can't deny that. But offensively, those 3 guys have been basically non-factors. You saw what Deuce McBride did in Game 1 with the plus 37. I'd take Deuce McBride over any guy that the Sixers have besides Maxey and Embiid. And speaking of Tyrese Maxey, you got to give props to Tyrese Maxey, who played an unbelievable game in Game 2. He's the only guy after the game who goes out there and shows even an ounce of accountability. If I'm a Sixers fan, I can't really even put myself in the mind of a Sixers fan, because they are not the most reasonable bunch of people. But if I'm a Sixers fan, undoubtedly I'm upset about the officiating. It's unfortunate that the refs missed 2 calls down the stretch of the game when the refs have been missing calls throughout the 46 minutes of that game that the Sixers benefited from. It's just not showing up because the League 2-minute report is the last 2 minutes. But I'm a Sixers fan. I look at what Tyrese Maxey brings, the intensity, the accountability that he took after the game, saying that this is our fault. This is the reason why we lost this game. It's because of us. There's no refs involved. Like, we lost the game because we did not execute. And that is what happened. Because say what you want about the 2 missed calls on Maxey getting the ball on that inbounds pass with the Knicks down 2. They had 4 guys in the paint, around the paint, looking up at Isaiah Hartenstein, jumping right over all of them and grabbing that offensive rebound, kicking it out to Anunoby, who kicked it out to DiVincenzo at the top of the key, who hit the 3. That game was the Sixers to win or lose. Considering how poorly Jalen Brunson played again, the defense that the Sixers played on him was, again, impeccable. Jalen Brunson wasn't able to find any sort of rhythm or groove. He was chucking up shots left and right down that last 4 or 5 minute stretch of the game. Would have been the reason why the Knicks lost the game if they lost the game. And then the Sixers, they're down 1. They have a chance to tie the game. They have a chance to win the game at the buzzer. The smart move is what Maxey did, which is basically go out there and try to do something with the first 2 or 3 seconds of the clock. He gets past the defense, gets into the paint, and then Isaiah Hartenstein blocks him. And OG Anunoby hits 2 free throws, and then the Sixers have another chance to tie it, which they didn't do. Stop blaming the refs. And if I'm Nick Nurse, I take a hard look in the mirror. I know he's kind of walked back his claims, saying that he at midnight that night he got over it. It was over. They lost the game. But the fact that you're coming out there in the post-game press conference and saying all that stuff and placing the blame on the officiating like you did, come on, is that something a real man does? Is that something that someone, if I'm Daryl Morey, who obviously he's the one who filed this grievance to the NBA, it was his decision at the end of the day as the GM of the team. But if I'm Daryl Morey, I look at my head coach and I'm like, do I really want a guy who's not going to be able to take accountability? Do I want a guy who's going to blame the refs and not look his team straight in the face and say, we are the reason why we lost this game? How is that going to help you build on this next stretch of games in Philadelphia? 2 games that, first off, game 3 is must win, as is any series, any team down 2-0 in the NBA, because no team has ever come back from 3-0. We almost saw it last year with the Celtics, but it's not going to happen. It hasn't happened unless we see it. It's impossible for it to happen. So the next 2 games are absolutely must win, especially this game 3. So who knows what he's saying to his team privately, but if I'm a player for Nick Nurse and I heard that, I can't say that I'd be too fired up to go into the next game to actually perform and to actually put some blame on myself for how poorly I played. Because if I'm just thinking about the refs, then the refs are going to make or break this next game too. If the Sixers come out, they're not getting every call that they want to get. And speaking of calls, let's just objectively throw something out there. Throughout all of the postseason series, there's one guy with the most free throw attempts, and it's not even close. And you guessed it, it's Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid has 24 free throw attempts. No player is even above 17. And Brunson has 15. So all these Sixers fans want to call out Brunson for foul baiting and the free throw merchant. The real free throw merchant in the series and in the NBA is Joel Embiid. And it's infuriating to watch the flopping, the falling down, the complaining, the bitching, the moaning. I mean, Joel Embiid, for as good as he is, former MVP, one of the best talents that we've ever seen in the NBA, such a crybaby, such a whiner. Is that really the type of guy that you want on your team? And I understand Philly fans had this soft spot for him because he's been their guy, homegrown, he MVP, one of the best players in the league. Guy's always hurt down the stretch. And yes, he's always pushing through and he's always playing through it, but he's always hurt, objectively. And he's never made it past the Eastern Conference semifinals. And it would be miraculous if he could do that this year. If he could somehow put the team on his back, return to 80, 90%, which I just don't see happening overnight, and willing this Sixers team past what has kind of built itself up as an insurmountable deficit. I wouldn't say insurmountable, but a very hard deficit to return from. Down 2-0, going to Philly, which, yes, you've got, your home court advantage the next 2 games, but we know how well Knicks fans travel. I can get to Wells Fargo Center right now without traffic in an hour and a half. So you don't think that thousands of Knicks fans are going to show up to Wells Fargo Center? Sure, you'll have your season ticket members there from the Philly fans, but there will be a large section of Knicks fans at tonight's game. So it's just looking more and more bleak as time goes on for the Sixers team. They needed that win the other night, and they didn't get it. They didn't execute down the stretch. Don't blame the fouls. Don't blame the refs. Don't blame whatever. You need to take accountability. You need to look yourself in the face and say, we are the reason why we lost that game. And we'll see how the Sixers respond. We'll see if they take accountability, if they take responsibility for blowing one of the worst playoff losses in NBA history and come out strong in Game 3. Because I think if the Knicks get out to a good start in Game 3, you will see the Sixers fans, the Sixers players completely deflated. And how could you not be after what happened on Monday night, losing that game in the manner that they did? So we'll see how tonight goes. Jalen Brunson is the X factor for the Knicks. There's no doubt about it. He has played, again, as I said earlier, 2 of the worst games that we've seen him play all year. And I even put out his career. He's going to have to find his groove. He needs to find his rhythm. It's an absolute miracle that the Knicks are up 2-0 in this series, considering how poorly the Knicks' best player has played. So we'll see how he's able to respond, because if he has another bad game, there is just a snowball's chance in hell that the Knicks win Game 3. He's the one guy that matters. You're not going to get Deuce McBride hitting 4 or 5 threes every game. You're not going to get Bojan Bogdanovic actually hitting his shots every game. It's like a once in a blue moon thing for Bogdanovic. You're not going to have a good game from Dante DiVincenzo like you had on Monday night every single night. Look how bad he played in Game 1, DiVincenzo. He came out strong. So hopefully we'll see the same from Brunson, because if we don't, then the Knicks will be up 2-1 instead of 3-0. All right, let's move on to topic number 2 today, and that's the Giants, and less important in my eyes, and I think a lot of other people's eyes, is the Jets in terms of what this draft is and who the Jets already have and the offseasons that they've already had. The Jets are in a good spot where they are at 10. They'll probably end up with Brock Bowers. They'll end up with someone that could really impact winning. It's more important for the Giants here. And I understand, the Jets have more expectations. The Rodgers, old, whatever. He's twilight of his career. The Jets are all in, win now. But for the Giants, there is just so much more riding at this, because they don't have their quarterback. And it has been reported by a lot of people out there that the Giants have one quarterback and that top crop of quarterbacks in mind. And after interviewing and working out seemingly every person in the draft, they have set their sights on Drake May from North Carolina, the quarterback. And to get him, you're probably going to have to trade up with the Patriots at 3. And the Patriots, say what you want about their interest in J.J. McCarthy, I don't really think that they'd be willing to trade down from 3 if they want to take Drake May. And that's where all signs are pointing to, that they want to take Drake May at 3. And the Giants really want him. So this is what happens when you win 3 straight meaningless games in the middle of the season that have no impact on what happens next year. You still had your defensive coordinator quit or get fired or whatever you want to call it. Nothing would have changed, besides the fact that you wouldn't have had to trade up to get one of the quarterbacks that you really wanted in this draft. And there was a chance that the Giants could have ended up with the first pick in Caleb Williams. At one point, that is something that we were talking about. And then Tommy DeVito with his Sean Salato, his agent, his nice suits, took the world by surprise, took the Giants fandom by surprise. I think in the moment, a lot of people were caught up in just how fun it was to watch a team that had a slight sliver of hope. But look where we are now. Potentially facing a decision that could have massive ramifications on this regime for the Giants in the next 5 to 10 years for this franchise. If they trade up for Drake May and they give up what they'll have to give up, first round pick this year, probably their second round pick this year, and their first round pick next year, you could say goodbye. If they do this and then it doesn't turn out, you could say goodbye to Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. And then the Giants are back to square one. They have to restart yet again. Yet again, which none of us want. So I really trust, as I've said multiple times, you could check out more of my Giant stuff on the One Giant Step podcast on WFAN's YouTube page, or you could catch it wherever you get your podcast with me and Sean Morash. But something that I have continued to reiterate is the fact that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, seems like they know what they're talking about. Seems like they know what they're doing. We could trust them. And they really like Drake May. They've done their due diligence. They really like Drake May. If you really like him, you go up and get him. If you don't, if you're a little bit more, if there's some trepidation, if there's any slight trepidation, you don't do it. You stay back. This is something that I've proposed that I think that could work. That what if the Giants stay back at 6 and JJ McCarthy ends up falling to them at 6, and they could look the Vikings, they can look the Broncos dead in the eye and say, "What do you want? What do you want to do about this? Do you really want your guy JJ McCarthy? You really want your quarterback in the future?" And if so, the Giants absolutely should trade down. And then they could get Penix at 12 or 23 if they trade with the Vikings or 11, wherever. You get the point. The Giants have a lot of holes to fill. And if they don't end up with Drake May and no one trades up to 4 to get J.J. McCarthy, so you both Marvin Harrison Jr., who's probably not going to go to the Giants, and Malik Neighbors, who I really want. I think that's the best receiver out of him and Odunze. But if that's how it goes, where the 3 quarterbacks taking 1, 2, and 3, and then you get the 2 wide receivers, 4 and 5, if the Giants are left with the decision to trade down or take J.J. McCarthy or take Rome Odunze, I think they trade down. If there is any truth to the interest that teams have had in all of these mock drafts that every analyst, that every draft guy has put out, that teams really like J.J. McCarthy, then the Giants should absolutely take advantage of that hype and trade down. They have a lot of needs. This team is nowhere near complete. Yes, a quarterback changes everything, but if you don't have that quarterback that you really like, you don't do it. You punt, you get some, maybe you trade with the Broncos for Patrick Surtain. Who knows? You get your quarterback in the future. You shore up your entire defense. You have one of the best defenses in the NFL if you make that trade. But your offense is your major weak point on this team. On paper, the Giants' offense looks like one of the worst in the NFL, objectively. It's not good. The question mark's at quarterback. The question mark at running back. Devin Singletary is not your long-term answer at running back. They're going to have to draft a running back with a 4th or 5th round pick. Your question marks at tight end. Who the hell knows what's going on with Darren Waller? He might decide to retire. He's getting a divorce with Kelsey Plummer. I don't even know if they were married, dating, whatever. They're getting separated. Who knows what's going to happen now? I don't know if that's going to give him more motivation to play and actually stay on the field and not get hurt, or if he's going to want to retire and move on with his personal life. But it's just unfortunate that he wasn't able to give us an answer before the draft. And I don't think it will really impact the draft plans, but it might. It might. So that's another question mark. And then the question mark with receiver. The Giants need that A1 receiver, 1A receiver. They have a B and a C receiver that are very solid. Very solid. And once they get that number 1 receiver, everything will change for those 2 guys in Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt. two guys who've shown a lot of promise. So you get that number one receiver, which I think my prediction here, I think that the Giants end up with Neighbors at 6. I think that's how it goes down. If they're not able to trade up to 3, if May doesn't fall, if McCarthy, whatever, I think they end up with Neighbors at 6. Obviously, that will all depend on whether or not a team trades up to 4 or 5 to get McCarthy, or whether or not the Chargers somehow don't go receiver. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. I think that's the best case scenario for all of the realistic options. The Giants end up with Malik Neighbors, and they get their top receiver. They could trade back into the first round if they really want to get that quarterback that they want to get. At least realistically, whoever they want won't be there at 47 with the need for quarterback in the NFL like there is right now. Teams are going to be taking flyers on Bo Nix. Teams might be reaching on Michael Penix Jr. That is all reasonable to assume. So hopefully the Giants go about this in the right way. I trust Brian Dable. I trust Joe Shane. We'll see how that goes. We'll see about the Knicks tonight. Hopefully the next time I'm talking to the Knicks have won their series against the Sixers, and hopefully they win tonight. Hopefully they win in Game 4 and they sweep the Sixers. They put them out of their misery, and they let Joel Embiid take his much-needed rest. All right, I'm Bryce Gelman. That'll do it for today's episode. I will see you all either later this weekend. You can catch me on One Giant Step podcast. We'll be doing in-depth analysis for all the Giants picks, probably coming out Sunday night, Monday morning. You could check out my Twitter if you want the links to that. But as for the show, should be back next week, early next week, mid next week. But either way, I'll see you when I see you.